to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everyone, you are listening to episode 113, Fear is Not the Enemy, with Rebecca Wiener McGregor. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. And if you could just take a quick moment now while you're listening and give this show a rating and review on Apple, however you like to listen. I think that's the most common way on Apple Podcasts, but it really helps the show to grow and find new listeners. If you could just rate it, review it, helps me to be found. And it's a great way to pay it forward. And you'll earn some good karma, right? Because what goes around comes around. So I would really appreciate it while you're listening if you could do that. But I'm glad you found me, whether you're a loyal listener or brand new. Either way, this is a great show to pick up on. And speaking of what goes around comes around, what's been going around is a lot of fear. Okay, especially over the last 2 years and the events of the world. I think this is a really good time for this topic, talking about how fear is not the enemy. And I've got the perfect guest today. I'm going to bring on Rebecca in just a moment. Rebecca is a coach and a hypnotist and an author. She has a book out and she's many things, but she specializes in helping clients to overcome the fears that they live with day to day. And we all have them, myself included. And many times we don't even know that we're living with so much fear. We just get used to the discomfort and we think it's normal, but it's really not. And like I said, after the last couple of years, there are so many things that we're told to be afraid of the virus, afraid of losing our job or not making ends meet, whatever it might be. And so the world has really just been in this state of anxiety, and we need to come out of that now. And I think Rebecca is the perfect person to lead us out of that. So she's in the studio today, and she's going to talk about how you can understand and overcome fears in your everyday life, including in your career. So welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Hey, Lorraine. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I connected with Rebecca a couple months ago, and we just had so much in common. You know, I love that. I felt like we had kind of similar work and similar philosophies. So I'm glad you're here as well. So why don't you just start out though and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into doing the work you're doing today?
It's a little bit of a long and winding road, right? Everybody's got their winding road that gets us to where we are. But this is kind of funny. So 18 years ago is right around the time that this actually occurred. So in May, I'll be in my business for 18 years. And I worked at a job that I did not like at all. And that is actually putting it really mildly. Mm-hmm. And I worked at that job for a long time, but I had a really dear friend that I met and became close confidants with. And he watched a movie about hypnosis and came to work the next day and was talking to me about it because he knew my background was in psychology. My graduate work was in health psychology, that kind of thing. And he said, I think you'd really be interested in hypnosis. What do you know about it? And I could remember maybe 2 paragraphs in a psychology book that talked about the existence of hypnosis, but nothing more. And at this time, what's really important for you, the important piece of the story, I think, for you to know is that I was dealing with pretty mild to moderate to pain in the bottom level of social anxiety. So it was not really common for me to say yes to a lot of things at that time. And he said, what do you think about learning hypnosis? And I said, sure. That was my word, right? And I said, you find us a good teacher. I like put all the responsibility on him. You find us a good teacher and I'll go with you. And he found us a great teacher, and then he ditched me. And I ended up going by myself, which was, as you can guess, very uncharacteristic. But what happened was I healed the things that were creating the social anxiety, and that became my passion to help other people who were dealing with anxiety, panic, limiting beliefs, anger, that kind of thing that was taking over their lives. And so, 8 or 9 years ago, because of the majority of the people I were working with were female entrepreneurs, because that's who I was networking with, it became conversations around how are you having a successful business? How are you able to work through your beliefs about money? How do I know if I have limiting beliefs about money or success or worthiness or that kind of thing? And then it developed into those kind of two main tracks that I work with in my business.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, it's always a winding path, isn't it? Mine is not straight and narrow either. But I feel like we always find our way, right? Like the circumstances of our lives always bring us to where we need to be. So it's no accident that you found the hypnosis, and then also you had the anxiety yourself. It was all building you, I think, into the career that you're in today to help people overcome those. I know I have my own story similar like that as well. Absolutely. Well, so like me, I know you do a lot of work around helping people overcome fear, which is what you were really just talking about. But let's take a step back, and I'd love for you to kind of define what fear is. What is the role that it plays in our lives? And even how did we get here to a place where we all have so much anxiety? I know that's a big question, but really, I want to just kind of know what do you see as the role of fear in our lives?
At a very basic level, it keeps us alive, right? It keeps us safe. It keeps us from touching that hot burner when the stove is on, or jumping off the side of the hill, the cliff, right? It keeps us safe. And then based on our experiences, it grows and morphs into things that are not about the present danger. They're about past danger. So fear to me is definitely not the enemy. And it can also be a compass in our lives to point us in the direction of where we have a limiting belief or something from our past, really, that's not healed yet. Because a limiting belief doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes out of our experiences. And so it helps us understand, if you have a limiting belief about worthiness, at some point in your life, you were taught a lesson or multiple lessons about whether or not you were worthy or what worthiness looked like, that kind of thing. So we know, because there's a fear there's a limiting belief about, I don't know if I'm worthy. We know there's something in the past that created that. It didn't just fall out of the sky. Mm-hmm. So it's a good indicator. So we don't have to think of fear as the enemy, like you're saying. We can let it be a guide for us into places where we need to heal or grow or simply infuse more love to ourselves.
Absolutely. And I feel like too, especially in today's society, like you said, where it's, for most people, it's not about just staying alive. We've got that covered, right? We have our basic needs met. There's not, a bear chasing us. We have that instinctual fear when we need it, but it's now morphed into things like, fear of talking to people or public speaking or new situations, right? So I think it's important to understand your brain's just doing its job. It's just trying to protect you, but you need to use discretion and understand that that's what it's doing. It's very primal, and it's not always right. Sometimes it's there for your basic advantage, but we have to, I think, really apply some higher wisdom and consciousness to this and kind of think, okay, I've got my basic needs met, brain, settle down. I'm okay. I'm still going to go do this. And sometimes I think fear is just an indicator too of a limit that you have, a boundary that you've set. Oh, I've never done that before. So when we hit a boundary, it feels uncomfortable, right? Because we've never gone that way before. So then fear comes in. But how do knowing that we have to have some fear, it's necessary, it's primal, it's built in. How can we use this fear to our advantage in our lives?
First of all, we can stop judging it. The first thing to do, the first step of the path is to stop judging the fear and pay attention to it, honor it, validate it, which sounds kind of like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to honor, why would I want to validate the fear? The fear is like, it's coming from a place inside of us that if we don't listen to it, it just gets louder. So because it really wants to be understood, it really wants to have us listen to it, that if we're not indicating that we're listening to it, it's going to get louder and it's going to get stronger and it's going to rein us in even more. It's going to, the grip is going to get tighter. But when we listen to the fear, when we pay attention to it, I often will just put my hand on my heart and say, what is this fear trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? And honoring and acknowledging the fear will actually help it get very quiet. And when we do it in such a loving way, we're not attaching more judgment to that fear. Because at its root, the fear is an opinion, right? And the more judgment we add on to that, the stronger we believe that to be. And then we start thinking of it as a truth when it's merely an opinion. Might be a strong one, might be a loud one, might have a grip your chest feeling attached to it, right? Or a churn your stomach feeling attached to it. But it is really an opportunity for us to be very loving with ourselves and say, okay, what do you need right now? What is the fear attached to? And how can I look at that circumstance? How can I reframe it? How can I find my lessons from that circumstance? And discover, who I've become because of that circumstance, and maybe even find a little bit of gratitude for who I've become because of that circumstance. Obviously we have different levels of pain that we've been through in our lives, but there have been many experiences in my life where I'm actually grateful for that pain or that discomfort because it created who I am now. So being very loving is so powerful because the fear is always going to be on the defense, right? And it's going to get louder. And so if we try to just say, no, shut up, be quiet, go away, that's not validation. That's pushing it away. It's not hearing it and it's not using it to our advantage. Because when that fear comes and we say, okay, I hear you. What's this really about? We can get answers. We can get answers. And with those, then we can use our healing tools that we have to either work through it, to reframe it, to look at it in a different way, to get comfortable with it, which sounds kind of crazy, right? But also very possible. And then together move forward. Because our ego is so strong, it's trying to keep our perceived self safe. Right? It's trying to keep us in the status quo. It doesn't like it when we go into the unknown because the fear likes to know what's going to happen. The ego likes to know what's going to happen. And
it doesn't like surprises.
Forward, right? Not at all.
Yes, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yes, and so then it resists it. Yeah. Well, I love what you say about not judging it. That was the first thing you said because we do tend to judge our feelings. So first we have, what we perceive as a negative feeling. Maybe we just feel discomfort or fear or anxiety. Then we judge ourselves for having it, and then we feel worse as a result of that. It's like more negativity piled on top, and then you're in a hamster wheel because you're really in a state of resistance where. It's your resistance to what you're feeling, I think, that's causing you suffering, not so much what you're feeling. Actually, the feeling isn't going to hurt you. It's just a feeling. But your resistance of it and denial, as you said, and pushing it away, that is actually what's causing 90% of the suffering or even 100%. And people don't realize that. They think the feeling is the bad thing. But if you would just accept your feelings and process them, you would actually realize they're not going to hurt you. They're going to help you, like you said. And they're telling you something. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
When it
I kind of look at it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I was going to mention that sometimes when we talk about processing or paying attention to our feelings, when we're in the thick of the feeling, it feels kind of out of reach to do that. And I just wanted to offer, imagine all of your feelings are sitting around a table and you're there with them, if you can just kind of lean back and observe what's happening in your body without reacting to it, without judging it as right or wrong or bad or good, you can actually grasp a lot of data. And it comes from just having that pause moment, taking a breath, and then listening and paying attention to what's happening in your body at that time. As the observer, the noticer of what's happening, which takes a little bit of practice, especially if you're in maybe a panic state. But also that's an opportunity for you to be really, really loving with yourself and continue to ask that question. What do you need right now? What do you need right now? And then as you get those questions answered, the feelings start to decrease, dissolve a little bit, and then you can be more in that observer role of your feelings and get the answers that you need.
Yeah,
so I hope that was helpful.
It's definitely a process, not something that's going to happen. You're right, in the moment, right? We're too busy feeling our feelings in a rush of emotion in the moment to think more logically, and so we have to slow down and let it process. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, when it comes to our careers, especially, I don't know, do you work with clients who have anxiety or fears in their careers, whether it's, sometimes it's just lack of clarity or inability to advance. I know we talk obviously a lot about careers on this show. So how do fears creep up in our careers? What does that look like and manifest as sometimes? And have you had some challenges with clients that you've helped them to kind of work through?
Oh, absolutely. And in my own life too, deciding to go full time in my business was a huge step. And many of the people that I'm working with, they're very, they're been in a role for a really long time, and they're, desiring growth, or they want some kind of a change. So it does come up very often. I mean, most of the people that I'm working with are dealing with transitions in their lives as well. And
absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. I think it is, it's a matter of patience, right? Because going back to understanding that when we want to make a change in our career, when we want to ask for the promotion, when we are feeling like there's a next level coming that would be more fulfilling, it's really natural for those fears to come up and say, can't you just stay right where you are right now? Can't we just use this fear to stop us from so much growth that requires more responsibility or more stepping out and being visible or things like that?
Yes, there's a lot of vulnerability in job searching and changing careers. And I know that as well. And I know you do too. And especially too, and as you and I know, going out on your own and starting a business, which some of my clients do as well. It's sure. A very vulnerable process because you feel like you're putting yourself out there. So I think a lot of it has to be reframed, right? That this is something that you can do. You have to manage that fear, like you said, and use it to your advantage and not necessarily interpret it as something that's telling you, no, you shouldn't go do that. I tell people it just means you haven't done that yet. That's it. That's right. All it means. You've hit a boundary, you've hit a limit. And we have to push through it. But I believe in setting small goals. Take one little small fear, manage that, be really successful, and then set a bigger goal. I don't like to tell people to set really huge goals and then go all in. I think a lot of people out there do, coaches do stuff too. I tell people to set micro goals, master those, and then incrementally just increase it, So set a smaller career goal. And then once you feel more comfortable with that, slowly expand your comfort zone. I don't know what you feel about that. What do you feel like is the best strategy for somebody who kind of wants to do something new, wants to branch out and get out there, but they're feeling that fear and anxiety? How would you kind of help them to overcome that?
Well, there are some other things that are often influencing this, right? Because I love the idea of the micro goals and taking this feeling and enjoying that success and then moving on. Because for most of us, especially when we're in our careers, we can't wait for the fears to subside to go for things, right? We can't wait for ourselves to be fully comfortable. We have to take a step. And what I appreciate about the micro goals is that you have a little bit, maybe less discomfort rather than going for the hugest possible, the whole mountain goal. We try to get over a little hill. And I think that I really appreciate that. But there's something that comes in for a lot of people around their careers, and I think it's time scarcity. I wanted to be this by this age. I wanted to do this, or I'm 40 years old. What have I done with my life? Because I wanted to have this career and I'm not there yet. And so for a lot of people, that time scarcity will pop up. And I think that's something to acknowledge and to be really loving about as well. Because I'm sure you know this way better than I do, but I know that many people have 3 different careers in their lives.
Oh, at least
3 different major careers, and to be concerned about time scarcity. What if I don't get this? Like, what if I'm not following my 5-year plan or my 10-year plan or whatever? So to be in a place of acknowledging and honoring that time is inside of you. Right? The calendar flies by regardless. And I think as we get older, it goes by a little bit, the pages go by a little bit faster. But to know that fulfillment outweighs the time worry, the fulfillment and connection to the work and the passion that outweighs whether or not we're on our 5-year plan, like if we're following the calendar or trying to get to be CEO by the time we're 50 or 45 or whatever.
Yeah, it's the shoulds, right? I tell people to be very careful with the shoulds.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, because those will make you feel inadequate, as if you haven't done something that you're supposed to do. But there's just what you choose. There is no set path. You're creating it, so you're allowed to rewrite those shoulds as you go and adjust them. If what you thought you would achieve by the time you were 35 is maybe no longer what you want. I know I am certainly not living out the life that I thought that I was going to, in the career that I thought I was going to when I first started out. I had to give myself the grace to change directions and change course. And that means changing the timeline as well. So I think that time scarcity is a good point, because I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to achieve a certain amount by a certain time. And I know I'm a big type A overachiever, type perfectionist. I'll admit it. My husband will confirm that's definitely me. So I really appreciate what you're saying about that. I think that I've had to let go of a lot of that and allow myself to kind of create a new path that works for me. So I love that.
Yeah, I think you used the key word, grace.
Yes.
That was the key word right there, is just allowing yourself to even to check in and say, is this still fulfilling for me? Is this still something I want? Or do I think I have to keep going for it because I wrote it down on the paper or put it on the vision board?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Visions can be changed. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, one thing I know I want to touch on a little bit, because you kind of mentioned it at the beginning of the show, is the hypnosis part of what you do. Mm-hmm. That is not something that we have really talked about actually at all on the show. So some people may not be that familiar with what it is. Could you tell us a little bit more about what hypnosis is and how you help people in your practice with that?
Absolutely. So hypnosis is a really funny looking word for deep focus and concentration. And you're not sleeping when you're in hypnosis. Your eyes are closed to shut off all the external stimuli so that you can concentrate really on what's happening inside. And in hypnosis, it is very, very simple and swift, which is my favorite thing about hypnosis, is that it is such a swift acting technique that we can get to past memories and experiences that have held pain for us, or fear, or anger, or trauma of any kind. And what I do largely is to help people heal trauma. And I've helped people heal, largely it's a lot of what I do is help people heal things around shame, guilt, worthiness, loss, that kind of thing that shifts what we believe we're worthy of in our lives.
That is powerful.
It is powerful, and it's such a beautiful place to be, and I take it very seriously that my clients let me into their memories and they allow me to be a part of their healing journey. It's really a privilege to get to hear the stories and to witness the healing. It's a really, really special place to be. I take that so seriously.
I'm sure. Absolutely. Yeah. You're really working with people on a deep and personal level there. And that's really what you need to do for that transformation. And, even in the work that I do, I don't do, hypnosis or anything like that, but I still have found as a coach that sometimes I go places with clients that I wasn't intending, But you think, okay, we're just going to talk about your job search, but then you realize it's more their self-confidence. And then that's bleeding into their marriage and all these things, and sometimes it's a bigger picture. It's the whole person that you're coaching. It's so I can appreciate that as well. Sometimes I'm like, wow, is it okay that we're talking about this? Because this is where it seems like we need to go. So I hear what you're saying about that. That's why coaching and hypnosis are really so powerful. So let's tell our listeners, we do need to wrap up, but tell them a little bit more about your practice. Where can they go to learn about you? I know you put a book out recently that you can certainly tell us more about that, where they can find that. How can people connect with you?
All right. Well, what I do in my practice is I help women, mostly women, heal past trauma and dissolve limiting beliefs. So I help them heal anxiety, panic attacks, rage, frustration, feeling stuck, feeling a lack of freedom in their emotions. And we do that by, really healing the past and then recalibrating emotions and really helping them embody what they want to be feeling and anchoring that into their body. And it's absolutely my favorite gig of my whole life. I can't imagine changing any of it. So yes, they can find out about me at RebeccaWiener.com or healwithhypnosis.com. That's another spot that has a little bit more in-depth information about hypnosis itself. And the book I wrote is called Loving Her. It is 10 standards to call forward the wealthy woman inside of you. And it really is about discovering that you can live your life from standards rather than boundaries, where you don't have to be on guard all the time. You get to set up these standards where you live your life in, this is a matter of fact. This is the way that I'm going to live. And there's a lot of freedom that comes with that and a lot of release of judgment and fear and really stepping into who you want to be and after you decide what that looks like.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I would encourage listeners to go to your website to learn more about your practice and connect with you. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and just being somebody in my network. Because like I said, I think we do some similar, but some different work as well. So I think it's a great compliment. And we really can never talk enough about fear on this show because it's such a big barrier for so many clients. So I appreciate your insights very much. So thank you for being here, Rebecca.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that does it for another show, everybody. I will have a couple more solo episodes coming out starting in about 2 weeks in February. And I'm going to try my best, you guys, to get 3 shows out in February instead of 2. So keep checking, however you like to listen, Apple, Spotify, I think iHeartRadio. I'm out there all over the place. You can also listen right on my website, careeruprising.com/podcast. I recently revamped that page. So all the episodes are on there and they are easy to find. So thank you guys for listening. And thank you to Rebecca, and we'll be back in a couple weeks. Thanks, guys. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.